What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Elo Bandit, and welcome to Bounce Web Defiant, Pokemon Gimmick number 18. Alright, so understanding the basic strategy. You're going to start off with a Magic Bounce skill swapper to give your opponent Magic Bounce. You're going to bring in a Sticky Web user. Use Sticky Web against that Magic Bounced opponent so that the webs come up on your side of the field. Then you're going to bring in Defiant Pokemon to get the attack boost from getting the speed lowered from Sticky Web, and sweep from there. Putting together a team. This is what a team composition should look like. One Magic Bounce swapper, one Sticky Web setter, and then 4 Pokemon made up of Defiant, Competitive, or Contrary. Team member number 1 is a Skill Swapper with Magic Bounce. If you're playing in the PU tier, you're going to need to use Natu, as it is the only Magic Bounce user that's allowed. You've got Skill Swap and Magic Bounce so that you can do your job, play your role on the team. You've got Detect so that you can preserve your Focus Sash from Fake Out users. Trick Room allows you to set up, Trick Room so you can flip speed stats around and let a slow web setter get their webs up easier. And of course you've got U-Turn to hopefully give another Pokemon a safe switch in. If you're playing in NU, you get to use Xatu instead of Natu. Xatu has a couple of cool things. You can run a Choice Scarf or an Eject button on it since it's fast enough. It's base 95 speed, which is pretty good. You've got, of course, Magic Bounce Skill Swap. Trick allows you to put your Choice Scarf onto an opponent. And then Trick Room and U-Turn we keep for the utility. If you're playing in RU or above, you can use Espeon for this strategy. Espeon is cool because in addition to Magic Bounce and Skill Swap and Trick Room, you also have some offensive potential. You can run Maximum Special Attack and Psyshock or Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, and even Calm Mind if you want to set up and be an offensive threat. Espeon is a cool example of how to make this gimmick work and still have offensive pressure on all the team members. If you're playing in OU, for some reason, you get to use Mega Diancie. It's now an option that is open to you. You can run, of course, Magic Bounce Skill Swap so that you can do your job. You've got a huge speed stat of 110, which is really, really nice. You also have Trick Room and some dual offensive potential with both Moonblast and Diamond Storm. The second member of your team is the Sticky Web Setter. This is Swirlix. You can use it in PU. It's a fairly bulky Fairy-type Sticky Web Setter. It's also pretty unpredictable. Nobody really knows what this thing does. You've got Toxic, so you can act as a status spreader. And you can also act as a cleric thanks to Aromatherapy. You have a couple other move options, but none of them are that great, so I go with Copycat for a couple of situational advantages. And if you don't want to use Swirlix and you'd instead use something more reliable, something tanky, or something that's more famous for setting up hazards, but might actually work out better in the long run, you've got Shuckle. Shuckle, he's got his Sticky Web, of course. In addition to that, you've got the option to run Mental Herb, which I really like because it prevents Taunt and Encore. You've got Knockoff to get rid of your opponent's item. Stealth Rock to set up hazards. Just don't use that against the Magic Bounce setter. You have to pull Shuckle out, kill the setter, and then bring him back in and set up your Stealth Rocks later. And then you've got Rest for longevity. If you want to run like Leftovers instead, you don't have to run Rest, but this is the set that I like. Another option for Sticky Web user is Ariados. Once again, another PU Pokemon. Not super great utility-wise other than Sticky Web. The only thing that Ariados really brings to the table that other Pokemon don't is Toxic Spikes, which is fairly unique. If you wanted to mix this with some Hazard Stacking or some Hex or Venoshock type deal, that might work out. But yeah, Toxic Spikes is Ariados' niche if you feel like using it as your Sticky Web setter. And if you're playing a couple of tiers higher in RU, you can use Araquanid, who is really cool. People don't always expect him to Sticky Web. They expect something more like just a straight up Liquidation or offensive move, something like that. But yeah, you can run Sticky Web, you've got your dual stabs with Liquidation and Lunge, and you can even run Magic Coat to prevent Taunt. Team member number 3, Defiant. These Pokemon get a +2 to their attack when their speed is lowered by Sticky Web. Purugly enters the field and drops 2 turns worth of wicked damage with Fake Out and Quick Attack before the opponent can even move. +2 Life Orb. This thing hurts with Max Attack Adamant We also put on Frustration. We take Frustration instead of Return to beat Ditto, who will come in on us with its maximum happiness and use a 1 base power Frustration against us. And lastly, we have options with either Knockoff or Sucker Punch. Knockoff will, of course, get rid of an opponent's item and do a little bit bonus damage, and Sucker Punch acts as a bonus source of priority. Primeape, ideally, should come in at the end of a battle, consume his item after he boosts his attack, and then reset his speed and kill everything with Close Combat, a boosted Acrobatics, and Edgequake coverage. This thing is a brutal sweeper late game, especially if you're able to get webs up on both sides of the field. The only real reason to take this gimmick up to UU, we have Empoleon, who can rip through unprepared teams with a +2 Bandit or Life Orb Aquajet Liquidation. And then if you're playing in OU, you have no good reason not to use Bisharp, who can run an Assault Vest or Black Glasses to huge success, slap Iron Head, Sucker Punch, Pursuit, and Knockoff on him, because, you know, we got heck of damage. We might as well hit first, hit hard, and prevent people from switching out. It's also worth noting that Pawniard is a decent option if you're playing in lower tiers, although you probably have to run Eviolite so you don't have as much offensive pressure, and you do have to be aware of fighting types. Team member number 4, Competitive. These Pokemon get a +2 to their special attack when their speed is lowered by Sticky Web. Competitive Choice Specs Wigglytuff hits over 1,000 special attack after dropping on top of a Sticky Web. With amazing special coverage, with Dazzling Gleam, Fire Blaster, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, you've got Grass Knot or Thunderbolt. Like, this thing hits hard and it hits a very wide range of targets. The only problem is it's relatively frail and it's very slow, so I highly recommend pairing it with Trick Room. One of 2 contrary Trick Room setters, Gothitelle is really cool because it can act as either a more defensive leftovers set with Psychic and Charm, or it can go an offensive lure set with Buginium Z boosted Signal Beam. That's a very fun set because it lures in the dark types that think that they can beat Gothitelle. And then if you want to run a more offensive Trick Room setter that's competitive, you can use Meowstic F, who has got a higher special attack stat than Gothitelle, and in addition to Trick Room, you can run Psychic, Thunderbolt, and Shadow Ball for offensive coverage. If you're an RU, you can use Melodic, who's got a whole bunch of natural sustain with Recover and Leftovers. +2, of course, combined with a modest nature and maximum investment, makes Surf or Hydro Pump hit extremely hard with Stab, and Ice Beam and a Hidden Power offer pretty decent secondary coverage. Team member number 5, Contrary. These Pokemon often have their own special interactions with their movesets and abilities, but they tend to work extremely well on a Sticky Web-based team. Malamar notably outpaces Mega Alakazam after Sticky Web boosts its speed. It's also worth noting that it's got Superpower to spam, which boosts its attack and defense once every time it's used. And you can use your other coverage, Psycho Cut, Knockoff, and your choice of Switcheroo, Facade, or Rock Slide to melt through pretty much everything with your choice of an offensive item in Choice Band or a more defensive item in Assault Vest. Spinda is only really worth using over Malamar if you're playing in PU, as it does pretty much the exact same thing using Superpower, which normally lowers your attack and defense by 1, but in this case boosts it, in addition to some pretty decent coverage with Drain Punch, Wild Charge, and your choice of Elemental Punches or Double Edge for Stab. Kind of an obvious choice for this strategy is Superior, since with only 128 speed invest, you'll outpace a Mega Alakazam after a Sticky Web speed boost. We run Leaf Storm because we'll be primarily spamming that, which boosts your special attack by 2 every time you use it. You've also got Substitute to help you dodge status, Hidden Power, Fire, or Ice, it's up to you. And I also like to run Dragon Pulse, since it works as pretty good coverage versus Grass Resists, although you also have the option to run Leech Seed in this spot. And then if you really want to use a Leaf Storm Spammer, but you're not willing to take this strategy all the way up to OU, you've got Lurantis in PU, who can use a Life Orb boosted Leaf Storm, in addition to, of course, a Hidden Power, and Signal Beam. You don't really have very good coverage, to be honest, but at least you have Synthesis for some decent recovery. Team member number 6, another one of your choice. This one can be any of the above listed Pokemon. Pretty much what you just want to keep in mind when choosing it is keep a good physical special split, make sure your team is balanced, and don't stack up too many of the same type unnecessarily on one team, like try and avoid stacking up 3 water types or 3 psychic types, that kind of thing. But other than that, this choice is pretty much up to you. You can build your team however you want it with the aforementioned Pokemon. Building for the right tier. If we're playing in the tier PU, this is what our team might look like. We've got Natu, since it's the only magic bouncer allowed. We've got Swirlix, since it's not really threatened by anything in the tier, although we could use Shuckle instead if we wanted to. We've got Purugly for the huge physical damage, Primeape for more physical damage and late game cleaning potential, and then lastly the combination of Wigglytuff and Gothitelle that can set up Trick Room and sweep with huge special attacks. You'll notice I've also put in Meowstic F and Lurantis as other options. So if we're playing this in NU, Xatu is now allowed, we can use it. We're upgrading to Shuckle from Swirlix, who needs that? Purugly and Primeape for their awesome physical capabilities, we're keeping them around, they're pretty cool. And then we've got our choice of special attacker in either Gothitelle or Wigglytuff, whichever one we think might work better with this team, depending on whether we've got enough Trick Room power or not with just Xatu. And then lastly, Malamar rounds out the team pretty nicely with his Psychic and Dark coverage. As I mentioned, the only real reason to move up to the UU tier is Empoleon. You get to use it. So yeah, if you really want to use Empoleon with the Liquidation, Steel Wing, Drill Peck, Earthquake, cool set, sure, whatever floats your boat. You can also drop a Araquanid on this team to improve your... make it harder for the opponent to tell what you're doing, what you're trying to set up. With Shuckle, it's a little bit more obvious that you're going to set up a Sticky Web. With Araquanid, a little bit less so. And if you go all the way up to OU, which, disclaimer, this isn't as great in OU as it probably is in other tiers, you got some cool new team options. You can run Mega Diancie. You keep Shuckle and probably keep Purugly around, because Purugly still decimates even up in OU. And we've got now available to us Bisharp, our choice of water type in either Milotic or Empoleon. If we want to go physical or special, that's where we would make this decision. And then lastly, we've got Superior, who, hey, if we're playing an OU, might as well use pretty much the absolute best contrary Pokemon with this strategy. So now, notes on hazard removal. Does hazard removal counter this strategy? Not really. Rapid Spin used by an opponent will only clear hazards on your opponent's side of the field, so the Sticky Webs on your side will still stay up. Defog will remove all hazards, but it has the added effect of reducing evasion when it hits, which procs Defiant, procs competitive, or gives a contrary Pokemon an evasion boost. What if my opponent won't let me bounce my webs? Well, if your opponent has decided to keep switching out whenever you try and set up your webs, take advantage of the fact that you have a primarily offensive team, put offensive pressure on your opponent, and just worry about setting up your webs later. Or you can get up your regular webs, take advantage of the fact that your team is very powerful at a middle speed tier, and destroy from there with just regular webs set up. Go ahead and stack up whatever other hazards you have on the team, and just play it like a regular team. This gimmick is unique in that you can pretty much do that. You can just play it regularly and set up the gimmick whenever you get the opportunity. Now, how to counter this strategy? Pretty much comes down to this. Keep switching out whenever they give you Magic Bounce, knock out the web setter, and try not to die in the process. If you do these three things, you'll win against this strategy 100% of the time. Is this strategy actually viable? Well, yes, because it works even without immediately setting up the gimmick. It's extremely flexible and has many variations between tiers. It can be very unpredictable, carries a flexible offensive element that most gimmicks don't have, and most people don't realize what's going on until it's too late. Additionally, once you pull off your mini win condition, which is the webs up, the battle tilts hard enough in your favor to almost always ensure a win. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.